You have probably heard of a movie called Cannibal Holocaust. There's no way this video gets monetized. Since its initial release all the way back in 1980, the film has always been intertwined with controversy. Whether that was for its stomach-churning fictional violence on the characters that was so realistic, the director, Ruggero Deodato, had to appear in court with one of the actors who many people at the time suspected was dead in real life, or for the slap on the wrist Ruggero and his team received for the real deaths of real animals. I'm not here to excuse the actual awful things that occurred on the set of this movie, or to tell you to sit down and watch it with your grandma. She would probably have a heart attack watching it. I bring up this movie because, for better or for worse, it is the film that popularized many of the tropes that have become all too common in horror films, released 40-something years later. It's one of the first films in the found footage genre, beating out other genre staples like The Blair Witch Project by almost 2 decades. It also blurred the lines between fiction and reality in a way that is rarely done nowadays in horror movies. The reason so many people question the status of the actors is because of a condition in their contracts that forbade them from appearing in the media for a year after the movie's release. This was done to create a sense of guilt for merely watching the film, and also to get people talking. The Blair Witch Project actually used a similar strategy for its marketing. However, Cannibal Holocaust's approach worked a bit too well. The movie was banned in Italy for 4 years. In the hellish, stagnating nanny state, or the United Kingdom, the movie was outright banned or restricted in some way for nearly 30 years. It caused major changes to Britain's way of rating movies and forced them to increase their jurisdiction over straight-to-video releases. While the movie is barely talked about today outside of references in Poppy's Playtime apparently, its effect on horror media is undeniable. And then 40 years later, analog horror took off. While Cannibal Holocaust was a controversial film that was a foundation on a very beloved style of horror, analog horror nowadays kinda misses the mark. Taking a lot of inspiration from the found footage and ARG genres, you would think most analog horrors would at the very least be interesting, and some of them definitely are. Some of them are even really good. However, the thing that enabled analog horror's boom in 2020 would also be its undoing, and that would be the ease of entry. While you could get something that breaks the mold and is manned by basically one guy with a random editing software he probably pirated, those series were few and far between, and also started taking longer to produce. In those big gaps, dozens of new analog horrors would sprout, and they weren't very good. Whether it was because of the content drought from the bigger analog horrors or uncritical glazing. And that is exactly what happened to Urban Spook. Constant points brought up against the series is the lazy presentation, over-the-top gore, and an overall failure to do the one thing all horror media attempts to do, which is scare somebody. You can find out all about it in a video made by— hey, wait a minute! It's not lost on me that I already made a video on this topic, but after over a year, oh my god, it's been a year? I realized I only talked about a symptom of an issue that is growing bigger and bigger with the majority of analog horrors dropping right now. Urban Spook is more acting as a foundation for a wider discussion I haven't really seen yet. So here is Urban Spook : something. I can think of a name yet. Remastered DX, now with a live service battle pass. We interrupt this definitely Border Orange's broadcast because, friends, I need you. Platonically. We are currently engaged in a harsh battle against my arch rival, Indefinitely Excited Apples. The original plan was to use real tanks, but then that turned out to be slightly out of the budget, so Instead, we're deploying the sponsor of today's video, War Thunder, a free-to-play, large-scale multiplayer military action game where ground, air, and naval forces all collide in massive battles. And the scale here is honestly insane. There's a huge variety of vehicles, so whether you want to control the battlefield on land, dominate the skies, or take over the ocean, there is always something to fit your playstyle. You can jump into combat vehicles from the middle of the 20th century to the present day. War Thunder also gives you access to advanced military tech, like guided missile drones, and night vision systems, which adds a whole extra layer of strategy to every match. And the combat itself is super detailed. There are no simple health bars. Every hit depends on where you land it. You can disable specific parts, hit critical components, and even trigger intentional damage depending on the angle and impact. And with the X-ray view, you can actually see what your shot did to the vehicle. On top of that, you can fully customize your vehicles with upgrades, performance modules, and visual skins. You know, we all like skins. So your setup actually matches your playstyle. The game also looks and feels great. The graphics, physics, and sound design really sell the scale and intensity of these battles. And with the latest 9th wave update, War Thunder keeps expanding even further, adding things like a unique branch of Hungarian aviation, improved water graphics for even more immersive naval battles, and new aircrafts like the F-16C, Block 52, and the MiG-29M. So, if that sounds interesting to you, download War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox using the link in the description. If you're a new player, or you haven't played in half a year or more, you'll receive 100,000 Silver Lions, the Decorator, Eagle of Valor, and more. You can also fully immerse yourself in the action with War Thunder Mobile, an epic mobile multiplayer experience. Download it and play it for free on iOS or Android using the link in the description. Now, back onto our regularly scheduled program. I think the first thing someone might say upon seeing the title of this video is, "Ty, analog horror is fine. There are multiple series that are really scary and use the medium very well." And I would agree for the most part. You've got stuff like Walton Files drip feeding you just enough info to allow you to think you know what's going on, only for the truth to reveal that things are even worse than you could have ever imagined. There's Mandela Catalog, which gives you an immeasurable amount of dread once you realize that we've already lost to the alternates. Gemini Home Entertainment and Local 58 weaponize the fear of the unknown in different ways to make you piss yourself. And these are all great examples. But for every one of these, there are 10 Urban Spooks. I think a good piece of horror content has some sort of active force that the audience can follow. This can be a main character having a situation thrusted onto them, making them reactive, or a main character choosing to seek out whatever horror entity is in their world, making them proactive. Either way, they are being active in some way. Urban Spook is severely lacking this. Every victim in the series is only that. A victim to increase the body count and show how depraved the killer is, which wouldn't be a problem if we followed the killer. However, the only way we're given any info about this character is the crime scenes they leave behind and the names of their paintings. They aren't a focal point, which creates a massive problem. Why should I care about this? We know nothing about the people being murdered until it's too late, and the person doing all of this is literally never in the story. The police who make these tapes aren't given any characterization either. Aside from, "Oh, we want to catch the bloody bad guy," there is nothing tying us down to this story. In literally any other slasher film, there is a central character that we follow. A Laurie Strode or Andy Barkley. We see their lives and their bonds, so when they're taken away later on, there is some emotion. Imagine Halloween 1, but there's no time spent building up the town of Haddonfield. Or Michael Myers, and a tape lazily explains the aftermath of the movie to you. That would be extremely boring, right? You could have a bunch of one-dimensional victims too, as long as the killer is interesting. We saw Chucky go from Andy's antagonist to the protagonist of the later movies. The question shifts from how is Andy gonna survive this one into how is Chucky gonna weasel his way out of the White House? What is Chucky even about, bro? You can't ask these questions because you already know the victim is dead, and you already know that the killer has gotten away. Instead of spending any time building something to anchor us to the series, Urban Spook spends most of its runtime explaining every gruesome kill in precise detail and flashing you with edgy image after edgy image. The first episode of the series spends a good while showing us all of this super creepy art, and I'm sure the intended reaction was to build fear by showing the audience how depraved the killer is, but I'm totally unimmersed. I'm on my third watch through of this series, and I think the best way to describe Urban Spook's way of handling horror is if your friend described to you the film Get Out, but only the kills. You'd probably be able to imagine the things being described, but I doubt you'd say anything deeper than, oh wow, that's pretty violent. I think the way Super Eye Petrov described early Roman Reigns matches is perfect here. Imagine a climax of a movie ending with an explosion. Now, imagine a movie with just those explosions, but then remove the visually stunning elements and replace them with some text telling you how big this explosion really was. It's a series so obsessed with trying to scare you that it doesn't even bother to attempt to leave a lingering impact.
Who the fuck is that guy?
This same thought process seems to have affected a bunch of new analog horrors we've been getting. You've probably seen Mandela Catalog, right? It's really good and in something really unique for the time, and is now very popular. I imagine it's some people's first ever analog horror series, and that's awesome. Being inspired by a good analog horror is great. Inspired is the wrong word though. I'm a troglodyte who takes inspiration from YouTubers infinitely better than me for both visuals and writing style. I feel like my terrible, shitty videos stand on their own feet because I take inspiration from different places and put my own spin on the aspects I've shamelessly stolen. God, you're so pathetic. A bunch of people watched Mandela Catalog and now, oops, everything's Mandela Catalog but bad. The kind of unique PSA style has been reserved to me so many times that I have lost all love for it. The good thing about the Mandela Catalog PSAs is that there's only one of them, and it goes into a lot of detail over how alternates work, so later, when every single one of these rules turn out to mean nothing, you're filled with a wave of despair. There's this one analog horror that is a PSA the whole time. Not only that, it uses designs really similar to alternates. They even kinda work the same way. I feel like this series failed to understand why the PSAs in stuff like Mandela, Local 58, and Gemini Home Entertainment worked. The PSA was the starting point of the meal. It builds fear. This new analog horror stays in that starting position the whole time. Oh, right, those were all different analog horrors. I'm not kidding. Every time I cut back to this new analog horror, it was a totally different one. And there is a non-zero chance you didn't realize that. And that's okay, because these series do a horrible job at differentiating themselves, and I'm worrying if that's on purpose for some of them. I really did think I was being harsh, but then I remembered that Gemini Home Entertainment and Local 58 are similar concepts. And despite that, they have drastically different styles of presentation. If I show you an episode of each, you can tell them apart. You cannot do that with any of these new analog horrors I have shown so far. The qualities separating them are all superficial aspects. This one here has a standard presentation, which basically means it apes Mandela's entire style. And its way of making me uneasy while building to the climax is to have really loud glitch effects play whenever something is going on. There's dozens of these videos on this one channel, and they aren't even telling a story like Mandela. Each video acts like it's in its own world and repeats the same info that it vomited out 20 videos ago.
A face you don't quite recognize. A name no one can repeat. If you ask them where they live,
They will only describe your own house, down to the smallest detail. And whenever someone tries to focus on them, truly look at them, their mind slips. Their face becomes vague. Your thoughts blur. You forget why you were even looking. This has happened enough times to raise official concern.
Here is an early scene in Mandela Catalog, where a tape is gradually building to this big reveal. A character reacts to their family member's compromised state as if it's barely an inconvenience, which already creates unease if you notice it. An uneasiness that transitions into fear by the end of the scene. And now, here's a much worse version.
However, the consumption of this information may cause perceptual bleed, sleep disruption, or mnemonic contamination. That means some of you will already know them. Some of you have already seen them.
Before we even get to the main bit, there is the equivalent of 4 vine booms playing while the video kills an epileptic person watching it. On a surface level, these are the same, but under any scrutiny, you can quickly realize Mandela has a real vision with its scares. This other one feels like it's running through a checklist. Alright, we've got our analog horror guy, but make this 4x3, add an analog filter, and after any statement we need to throw on a glitch effect just to make sure everyone understands that this statement might not be true. Here's another one. The Three Little Pigs analog horror. This should look extremely familiar.
The art style is inspired by Walton Files.
Visually, this looks good. The story is about someone maybe playing a game version of the Three Little Pigs, but the ending is changed, and the big bad wolf kills all the pigs in really gruesome ways. The final pig burns down the house they built along with the wolf, and some fucking dude appears and just starts yapping.
I have been corrupted. The witch did this for my thirst for revenge. I wanted to have a happy ending, but what's left for me is to burn eternally in hell for my actions. But I don't regret anything. I would kill more. I really like this.
My question is, what about this story makes any of it analog horror? Walton Files takes inspiration from fast food places that would have been booming in the 70s. Mandela Catalog uses the night PSA formats. Gemini uses old news formats to tell its stories. All of these examples use the medium of analog to enhance its stories or match the vibe. You see, the Three Little Pigs analog horror has nothing to do with the genre it's allegedly in. Honestly, it's closer to something like Sonic.exe. And I'm not just talking about the concept. Both of these series have nothing unique about them. Sonic.exe was bashed relentlessly for how cliche it was back in the 2000s. This series, yes, there's the fairy tale analog horror series, has no identity of its own. The story is extremely hollow. I can actually summarize the plot as everything is how it's supposed to be. But then the wolf goes turbo, and now characters are getting killed in hyper-realistic ways. Oh my goodness. And that doesn't really give me anything to latch onto, as it's a very cliche plot with nothing done to differentiate it from the 20 other pieces of media that have the same premise. The only thing that I praised, the art style, is so close to Walton Files that I struggle to spot any differences. At least Walton Files has a reason to look the way it does. The videos can work as flashbacks because visually they are supposed to bring you back to the time when the events happened. The fairy tale analog horror has this style because the creator liked Walton Files. If I remove the VHS filter and 4:3 aspect ratio, nothing about this plot would change. Nothing about its vibe would change. The main difference is people would be calling this a creepypasta instead. It feels almost identical to when TV shows and films will have a movie take place in a random time period for no reason, all because something else was popular that was set during that time. Stranger Things being set in the 80s is integral for its plot to work. A bunch of people saw the aesthetic, copied it, and didn't think about it any further than that. People coming up with a video and then just throwing the term analog horror at the end, to me, seems like an attempt to grift off a popular genre. It might explain why there are so many channels dedicated to just reusing the PSA style over and over and over. Some of these channels can't even be bothered to come up with their own monsters. You know, one of the best parts of analog horror? Seeing people create their own unique entities that work differently. Here is an analog horror video on how to survive the backrooms. This is extremely funny because the backrooms is another interesting piece of horror that got the Slenderman treatment. They used to be cool, and then people ruined it by giving it complicated lore and monsters? The whole point is that liminal space scary. Surely putting a hyper-realistic monster kinda kills that effect. Oh, here's another one of my favorites. The Lookmaxer cult. It's just talking about looksmaxing with a drag and drop VHS effect over it. What is happening? Here is my new analog horror on the Ku Klux Klan. This is the second video where I brought up the Klan. What does this mean? Hey, do you remember when this video was about Urban Spook? Yeah, me too. A new positive I now have for the series is the fact that it at least has its own style. You show me an Urban Spook video and I will at least know what I'm looking at. These other analog horrors try to be as basic as possible to maximize how many people watch the videos. This has gotten to the point that they don't even bother to keep up their image. Everything aside from Mandela Catalog usually stays in character in order to add to the experience. It would be very weird if the Walton Files channel randomly started posting about, I don't know, just off the top of my head, Jared from Subway. It would be tasteless and weird for an analog horror on Jared from Subway. There are 20 videos doing a Diddy analog horror. There's already something weird about using IRL murders in these things. Diddy, I actually have no words. The same person who made the alternates but not really and how not to fall into the dying topic also made a video on the Diddy analog horror. That's so strange that all of these channels all decided to make videos on the Diddy analog horror after one did really well. Look, this is a super common practice on YouTube. I'm not shaming people because they decided to cover the same topic. I'm shaming people for making the same lazy video on the same topic because it was popular and nothing else. Especially because analog horrors usually put staying in character above profit. What we're seeing here is the thing video essayists wake up in a cold sweat about. Slop disguising its shallow writing and research with flashy, easy to reproduce editing so the creator can mill out 1 million videos every month and get comical bags of money from it. It's why you get people making analog horrors about other people's shit. It's because it's easier than coming up with something original. It's funny too because the Backrooms video is somehow a more tasteful way of regurgitating content. There's a video on YouTube called The Family Guy Analog Horror, and this is genuinely the most important video for this topic. The entire video is about Peter Griffin and his family killing more and more citizens of Quahog, and then cutting away to Chris Griffin looking shocked. The entire time, a slowed version of Amazing Grace plays. I have no doubt in my mind that this video is supposed to be a parody on the genre, despite the insistence from the YouTube comment section. I don't think Nexpo is gonna make a video on this one, guys. The reason I think it is the most important piece of this video is because it illuminates the greatest flaws with the fans of analog horror. A lot of people can say they like something like Mandela or Local 58, but actually explaining why they like it or how to take proper inspiration to make their own thing is a lot harder. So what ends up happening a lot of times is someone watches a good analog horror, says,
"Wow, the gauge entry for it is so low. I want to do that."
And ends up making something like the fairy tale analog horror, which uses every single cliche you'd expect from something like this, making it extremely boring. And then the big bad wolf gets sunken eyes and starts brutally killing the pigs. There's tons of blood. Dude, ain't that crazy? To a lot of people, something like the Family Guy analog horror is the same as something like Greylock, because they both have the analog aesthetic and camera distortions. It's a shocking lack of quality control because way too many people get their opinions on analog horror from the YouTubers they watch. Don't get your opinions from me. I'm evil and cannot speak Spanish well. Anyway, I don't think it's a problem that the YouTuber or person watching them is doing what they're doing. The issue is when an audience refuses to engage with the original media outside of video essays or theories because it dismantles discussion about the original work. And you'll start hearing things like, "Born isn't Jack, it's confirmed." Where, random commenter? Where is that confirmed anywhere? Who confirmed this? Is confirmed in the room of us right now? It's why Urban Spook is such a black sheep amongst fans of analog horror, despite its problems not being that unique. It's just the loudest example that has also gotten a lot of coverage from a lot of YouTubers. Oh, hey, that's me again. To get back to the point of regurgitating content, you have the stuff I've already brought up in this video, but now with minimal coverage so fans just uncritically consume this content. The Pac-Man analog horror is the creative bankruptcy event horizon. It's a unique twist on the story of Pac-Man, where he goes insane over the monotony of his video game and starts killing the ghost he's supposed to eat. That's arguably better than what he does in the actual game, but there's very gory depictions of violence and Pac-Man has these sunken, hollowed out eyes that let you know something is wearing his skin like a costume. Friends, it's just Sonic 2EXE again. How are we back in the building again? The similarities between this, the fairy tale analog horror, and all of the bad creepypastas needs to be studied. They even have the same twist, where an entity is revealed to have been using a character as a meat puppet, and then they monologue at the screen, and... I'm not even kidding, it's just a one-to-one. The creator has said that they are going to remake the video as it's not the best. I bring this video up because we've gotten to the point where things are being called analog horror without a trace of the analog part. The whole point is to feel like a period piece of a time where people would use this technology. It also gives a sense of imperfection due to the nature of something like a VHS, which degrades very heavily over time. The Pac-Man analog horror is a video game that does nothing to set itself in any era. It doesn't even do the very basic thing every other series has managed to do, make the video 4:3. It's widescreen for most of its duration. Words have meanings, and we're now seeing them watered down to nothing. A lot of these would be right at home as visualizations of old creepypastas, which is not a problem. But then they have now had the genre of analog horror stuck onto them because their creators don't know what an analog horror actually is, or because a creator wanted to attach a popular tag to their series. You know, a boring killer is fine, but at least Jason was creative with his kills. I don't think 90% of the creators I've talked about are making these solely for profit. There's too much effort put into them, but a lot of them do have issues I wanted to address. I'm sympathetic because this is a lot of people's first time ever making something entirely from scratch. I think that alone does warrant praise. Just because it's not the best right now doesn't mean it can't get better. This now allows me to focus a bit more on Urban Spook again. Apparently, the last 2 episodes of The Painter fix a lot of the issues I had initially. Apparently, these last 2 episodes fix Urban Spook. Whoa, it's so analog. Oh wow, 3 parts into the video and I can finally talk about the thing in the title for more than 5 minutes. Shivering, freezing cold take, but Urban Spook has a lot of problems. Ones you no doubt have already known about if you're on this video. My main point was how we're giving too much information about the kills that take place. It's too detailed. With a lot of horror, a lot of times, less is more. The video titled Hell understands this perfectly. Firstly, things are moving, but more importantly, when the crime scene is revealed, the narrator doesn't describe exactly what happened to remove suspense. They give you just enough to build a really strong image in your mind. There were body parts from 5 different victims inside. Some of the remains have been sewn together into something that resembles clothing. Notice how this video is pixelated. Now, your mind fills in the gaps of what that would look like, which is so much more effective than your painter show the 2 queens together and make a picture about it. What the fuck is that? There's a bit later where the diagram comes back and I get really worried, but the main trick is used again for the family or for the painter kill. Oh, okay. It's still Urban Spook, just don't get me wrong, but it's Urban Spook at its best for the most part. We even get a full body cam section too. I was legitimately unsettled during this part. The cops managed to arrest the painter. A cop is even named and doesn't die instantly, which gives us our POV character. The last episode is surely gonna be something special. The video titled The Painter starts by revealing the killer was a girl the whole time? This is important. We got a few extra mentions of kills and problems start again. The whole leaving just enough details thing I just praised Urban Spook for, it dies. 80 broken bones, intestines ripped out, and they used it to choke the victim. But hey, at least the bodies are pixelated. It's just TMI, to be honest. The painter has done way more gross things, so I'm not really bothered by this. At least the earlier kills let me wonder how the painter did what she did. The tapes, which have been pretty reliable narrators so far, glitches out, and we get to see an unreleased interview with the painter.
So, Mona, would you tell us why you did the things that you did?
Well, wouldn't you like to know? Wouldn't that be a happy ending? A reason for it all? Tell them I did it for fun.
Oh no. So the painter's motivations are kind of but. The 2 main ones is this unstoppable urge to cause violence to people. It gives her a weird sense of pleasure, one that gets her in trouble with the interviewer. The second is the devil. Oh, great. Look, okay. It's not impossible to believe a person like the painter exists. A person with an unstoppable want to cause violence isn't hard to come by. I guess my issue is that it's really hard to make a character like that interesting. What made you kill? I don't know, I just really wanted to. And this interview is a few minutes long and we never really get a deeper look into the painter as a character other than reinforcement that she's a pervert who likes killing people. We're told when she makes the art, but never why. Just that the red man inside her is the one making her do the paintings. What does that mean for her character other than she's insane? I already knew that. What does this actually even do for anybody? She brings up the fact that she was an orphan. I could infer that this could have played a role into making her the way she is. Being so love-starved that she goes around killing families and sewing them together to try and fill that hole in her heart. I really like that idea for a killer. What the fuck? My interpretation is actually pretty airtight if you ignore every kill that isn't a part of that theming and the fact that the painter gives no indication that it's even the case. The orphanage is seemingly only brought up to explain how she found her accomplice and that he'd do anything for her. Anything. Oh, so gross. This interview doesn't give me a pause for thought. It doesn't even make me reevaluate how I felt about the painter. It just waste my time. It's very annoying too because it didn't have to do that. In JoJo's Diamond is Unbreakable 4x3 edition, we have my favorite villain ever, Kira. Just like the painter, he has an urge that causes him to kill women and take their hands. He's just as gross as the painter. The reason he works is that the show takes time to give him a real personality and also give us his POV. There isn't a moment the show tries to convince you that Kira is anything other than an evil serial killer, but it does let you see how Kira views the world. He had an awakening when he saw Mona Lisa's hands. His father spoiled him his entire life and helped him hide the bodies, and because of that, Kira is a complete man-child. He wants to live this quiet life and still act out all of his depraved desires without any consequence. He's furious when other people stop him from killing random women, as if they're the crazy ones. He gets frequent bailouts throughout the entire part, even getting a brand new identity that allows him to continue on the same way without a care in the world and barely any changes to his life. The whole time we've spent watching him though, he's miserable because he has to repress his urges while the heat dies down. The intrigue with Kira is watching a tornado of unfiltered desires pretend to be a normal person, to be around other normal people. The questions you ask about Kira change throughout the part to match his situation. When he first shows up, the question is, when are they gonna catch him? After he gets away, it's, when will Kira snap and kill again? And during the final encounter, the bleeding question is whether the Morio gang is able to overcome Kira's insane advantages. Like his ability to kill you with a single touch and blow away time. I got chills actually, oh my god, you should watch JoJo's, it's very good. All of the looks into Kira's past don't change how we're supposed to feel about him. They're done to show the audience how driven the man is to maintain a life he believes he deserves. It also helps that the guy has a foil in Josuke, who perfectly contrasts him in every single way. The guy dressed like a hooligan, with a heart of gold versus the office co-worker we all know who is pure evil. JoJo's is such a perfect example of why the painter is severely lacking, because part 4 starts and ends with serial killers. Angelo is a lot more loud and indiscriminate with his kills for the most part. However, Araki knows the dude wouldn't be interesting as an antagonist for a whole part, so he's turned into a rock pretty quickly. The painter has none of the advantages that Kira has. No foil, no one to bounce off, no personality that allows him to carry a scene other than killing turns me on and the devil. Oh, right. The devil. So my golden rule is, if you're gonna have a the devil made me do it character, is you need to confirm whether he's real or not. None of that, oh well, we'll leave it up to interpretation actually. No, it's not clever. Bad Hollywood writers who are constantly overworked and harassed. Second rule is making sure the writer is planting seeds for whatever route they choose to go with. I went to watch a movie called Longlegs a bit before my birthday last year, and the first 2/3 were awesome. It was a grounded story about a main character, Lee Harker, hunting down a cult leader who worships the devil called Longlegs. The two have a very personal history. This man traumatized Lee and her mother, leaving the two in a pretty rocky state relationship-wise. The big focus is on how Longlegs goes about getting fathers to kill the rest of their family. The entire film plays it super straight and, again, is very grounded. So I was under the belief that the devil Longlegs believed in wasn't real. And then he kills himself and the movie falls off a cliff. It's revealed that Lee's mother aided Longlegs in the murders so that he'd spare them, which is a great twist, I want to say. Then it's revealed that the devil is real and does just make fathers slime out their family. It really ended up feeling like the movie needed more time to really delve into that concept. But even more so, the devil being real felt like the writer wanting to be subversive, for the sake of being subversive. Because the movie up until that point shifted me away from that thinking. There weren't any supernatural elements involved. The movie could have been fine with the twist of the mother being a partner to Longlegs. He dies, but the killings won't stop because of his manipulation. But instead, it's the fucking devil. It totally jumps the shark and betrays its grounded storytelling up until that point. I bet you're thinking that I went on this huge tangent for no reason, Well, let me tell you how Urban Spook ends. After the painter's death, hundreds of murders have been reported with her classic calling card. Paintings of the crimes and the victims. But not just copycat killers in her tiny little town. No. These killings are happening in the entirety of the United States of America. This would work if the point is media attention on killer is bad because it inspires other killers. But that isn't a theme that was present in any other video aside from the finale. And the tapes we've been watching all of these on are police tapes. Private police tapes. If this is one of those the devil is real twists, it also feels hollow because we only really saw that aspect the scene before. In both cases, this big reveal at the end jumps the shark, does tricks on it like it's Sonic Colors, and then fucking marries it. And the best part is, the next 5 whole minutes is a montage of more drawings. The series ends as it began, a vapid slideshow, flashing you with edgy image after edgy image. Urban Spook, the creator, not the series, does not understand what made the good parts of their series actually good. And that ending only strengthens my belief. After legitimately getting a lot of people interested in the series again, they just made another regular episode of Urban Spook. I know I don't like the series. I constantly make jokes about it because it's funny, but I really did try to enjoy it. Imagine how cool it would have been for me to come back with a title like Urban Spook is good now? Now it's Urban Spook is not good now. Man, this sucks. Oh, wait, what's this? So my editor, who helps me out on most of my videos, actually sent me another analog horror to watch for this and wanted me to give my initial thoughts. I watched through the video and immediately noted the fact that it was just text over PNGs telling me a much more interesting story. The art is really good, but I didn't feel much else about the series. I think my initial response was just, holy Urban Spook. Which, I don't know, I think it's a pretty funny. Is that fucking Nexpo? I try not to be a total doomer about the state of analog horror, but I don't know, man. It's genuinely pretty sad to see how much the space has been overrun by slop since the first time I spoke about them. It's the same thing that happened to found footage movies while I was growing up. You had stuff like the Blair Witch Project that held me on the edge of my seat, and then some abysmal dog shit like the Paranormal Activity series, which was majority nothing happening with a few slight movements in the background or something. But they were really popular, made a bunch of money, and was obviously very cheap to make, as nothing happens for the majority of the runtime. You just gotta rent out a fucking house for a few weeks. Paranormal Activity was just a race to the bottom of taking a unique style and removing everything that actually made it good, while still reaping the rewards. It's just the natural state of anything. But it's something that I want to talk about because it's supremely important for the longevity of media and, for the sake of this video, analog horror. Just like found footage films, people started using it as a way to spice up their mid-movie plots. I think the exact same thing is happening with analog horror, but on a grander scale. I have seen these phony alternates videos all over my recommended, and they're all different videos, sure, but they all tell the same story. They have the same lines of dialogue. But this one uses a lens distortion with a border that is adjacent to a box TV, so it's actually really good. And then there's just all the AI doing this too. It's miserable. This is eerily similar to what killed a bunch of actually kind of cool creepypastas, like Slenderman, where people just started throwing a bunch of lore at the dude who was only effective originally because of that lack of information. Same thing happened to the back rooms. Oh, congratulations on the movie, by the way. Liminal space? Let's put monsters in there and lore, because the more lore something has, the better, or something. All things lead back to mostly children messing things up by daring to be creative, so we should remove all internet access for people under 18. I should clarify that I'm joking. I really don't know what a solution really looks like for quality control, because it's only based on what I like, and there's the real chance that most people think these analog horrors are totally fine. Maybe I'm just being an analog horror boomer or some shit, and this is all in my head and analog and stuff. Maybe I should just move on. I'm someone who got into the genre on absolute goats, like Mandela and Walton Files, and There's a Helicopter Outside. The latter being my favorite analog horror ever, and even then, it does break the rules that might seem like the standard for an analog horror to be called one. Mandela Catalog does the same thing, and I'm sure to people who were around before analog horror was even a thing, probably fucking hated these ones. It's a changing genre, and maybe these newer ones don't appeal to me because they're trying something different that is clearly resonating with a different audience. Maybe my mind will change over time, like the FNAF VHS tapes. Like, the FNAF VHS tapes are really good, and I said I didn't really like them at first. Turns out playing FNAF makes things a lot more understandable, and I dare say, good. Oh, fuck you! Fuck! I have options on what I can still watch. Walton Files are still releasing, just really slowly, and it's killing me, but that's fine. There's a version of this video where I act like I'm walking away from the genre, but that just didn't feel right. How could I walk away from the genre that, firstly, blasted my channel into a completely new and healthier direction, but also one that I became super invested in just a year and a bit ago. Back then, I called it a rising tide that lifted all ships, and I still feel that way, even with how many stinkers I had to watch for this video. So by the death of analog horror, I mean the death of what made me fall in love with the genre. That excitement and intrigue I had when I knew nothing has now faded away. But that's not a bad thing. I don't really rewatch most of my videos because I notice mistakes that I didn't catch during editing and it annoys me. But one I frequently go back to see is the best and worst of analog horror, mainly because it represents a major turning point in my life. I was directionless and took a big risk making this video, and it paid off. Now I get to talk about a bunch of bullshit instead. I haven't talked about analog horror on here in over a year, and I don't know, I guess the whole thing made me nostalgic. I'm getting nostalgic over stuff from a year ago. What the fuck is wrong with me? The point I wanted to make before I got weirdly emotional was that these things change. And that's a good thing. While it's super easy to get lost in a sea of just those negatives, you'll find a light that makes it all worth it. I'm sure there's someone who loved all of the analog horrors I talked about, and I think that's great. I'm always glad someone is able to enjoy something that my icy, evil, tiny little baby man heart couldn't. Here's hoping for more good ones. Coming to the end of the video, and I think I missed my Urban Spook. Friends, that's the end of the video. As a finale to the trilogy of my analog horror videos, I couldn't think of a better ending. Urban Spook inadvertently helped me hit 100k on YouTube, so like, I do owe them a lot. This isn't as long as my last couple of videos, but if you have made it this far, comment something like, "Ty, that Urban Slug cosplay looked great," or "horrible." Dealer's choice. As usual, I want to give a big shout out to the channel members. Like, you guys are awesome, and I don't know how far I would make it without you all. I might be streaming on Twitch soonish to play some more FNAF games or something else, I don't know, maybe Rivals. So check that out if you're interested. I'm gonna head to bed now, since I record all of these at like 3 AM for some reason. You lot have a great day. See ya, lads.